Welcome. Like Effie Trinket in the Hunger Games. Welcome. Let me try that again. We've gone straight from Brennan Lee Mulligan impressions to Effie Trinket in the Hunger Games. Great. Welcome back to the Dropout Drop-in. This is episode 3 of our series talking about all things Dropout with the goal of Dropout Game Changer getting an Emmy. As everyone knows, this is the show that believes that Game Changer should get an Emmy, that Sam should be giving an Emmy's speech. Sam, I hope you're warming up, because we are going to get you there. If no one else does, this show will act as your vehicle to the Emmys. I'm your host, producer Liz, and joining me is one of our panels returning in full, which is so exciting. Marissa, you're back for your second episode with us, The Game Change Her. How have you been?
Good, I'm good. I enjoyed last week's episode. I understood nothing about what was going on, but I was glad to be listening.
It's good to have specialties, right? It's good to know what's not your specialty. Shout out Rowan, who filled in on the Dimension 20 TTRGP space conversation last week. Jordon, you of course were here last week. Welcome back for your third episode with us.
Hello, good to be here.
You had a very normal...
super normal week.
Completely normal week last week. You had just a super normal time, super normal interview with someone. You want to fill everyone in on who is up on your Patreon right now?
Yeah, so I got the chance to talk to Sam Reich last week. He told me he could do 45 minutes once a year, and I said, sounds amazing. And at the 45-minute mark in the interview with him, I said, hey, we're at the 45-minute. And he was like, I don't have anything after. We can keep going if you have more questions. And I was like, Sam, I will never stop having questions. So then at right about the hour, I was like, you're going to have to tell me when you want to stop. And he was like, okay, I do actually need to stop now. So yeah, about an hour-long interview, chock-a-block with scoops. So many things that we learned as...
He dropped some big bombshells with you. Like, he gave you the scoop on a few do you want to tee up at least one so people have the incentive to go listen to the full interview and hear the rest?
We got the announcement that very important people will come back for a second season. So excited about that. Yeah, I was excited to break that news. I posted it on Reddit as God, how did I word it? I said it will return for a second season, and then a bunch of people thought that meant the first season was done. There are 6 more episodes, gang. We've got so much more very important people left.
And thank God we have so much more very important people left, because it is my favorite show of the moment. And if it was ending after only 6 episodes, I'd be heartbroken.
Yes, agreed.
It's so good. And to think that, not to cut ahead too much in our conversation, but to think that Zach Oyama was only the mid-season finale of this. Unbelievable.
Mind-boggling.
Unbelievable. So if you want to hear Jordon's full interview with Sam, you can head over to Jordon's Patreon, which will be linked in the description wherever you're watching or listening. And big shout out to all of the viewers who are coming back week after week and commenting on Reddit under Jordon's post about who could be coming on the show. We see all of you across platforms, and I'm very grateful that you're joining us week after week to talk about Dropout, because it's fun to do this with you and for you. And speaking of things that are with and for you, there is an auction live right now where you can get your hands on a Fantasy High Freshman Year Mini. And as of when I am speaking this, the auction is refreshing to add more minis to the live auction page. So right now, you can bid on Lunch Lady Doreen for $50. There's only one bid. There's no bids on Billy Hellmouth on foot. Jordon, what do you think of this auction as someone that has watched this in the past? Is it worth making a bid? Oh, Doreen's already up to $103, so it's already gone.
So I will say, for about 5 seconds this afternoon, long enough to get a screenshot, I was the high bidder on the Corn Cuties Battle Tableau, because I love committing to a bit. In every auction, I am the high bidder for the moment something drops, because then I can instantly no longer afford it. This was actually, wildly, the auction was one of the things when I first started posting regularly about Dropout, because I was posting a Crown of Candy auction updates, and saw really good response to it, and so I kept posting them. But yeah, if this is your first auction, if you are not independently wealthy, you will not be able to afford any minis. I'm so sorry to be the one to break that to you. Even the silliest possible mini that shouldn't go for any amount of money is going to go for minimum $500, probably in the thousands. You're out of luck. But All the proceeds, 100%
All the
of the
proceeds.
profits going to the Palestinian Children's Relief Fund. Fantastic. If you are a rich, head on over and get some minis for yourself.
It's a fantastic cause if you have the ability, and if you do not have the ability, that's why you share and bump videos that are talking about it so the people that do see them, and then they come and participate and join in on the fun. We're going to talk more about the auction throughout this episode, but just know for everyone listening, I will be updating in real time as the auction continues, because we're going to be recording over the course of a few of these updates, and it's very, very fun to have open in a tab and constantly refresh. This is a much awaited conversation. I feel like we started these conversations 3 weeks ago about how excited we were for Actually to come back into rotation. Finally, Actually is back with our incredible new host, Ify Nwadiwe. A little round of applause, little claps for Ify, bringing Actually back in his amazing fashion. This is your spoiler warning if you have not watched last week's episode. It's also your warning that I'm a huge Ify fan, so you're going to hear me gush about this show and about how great I think he is for the next 10 minutes or so. Marissa, starting with you. This episode of Actually, talk to me about how this season premiere worked in your brain. What did you see? What did you like? What stood out to you?
Gosh. Okay. I had so much fun. Actually is always like a test for me personally of like, am I going to know the answer to literally any of these questions? This episode, not a one. Not a clue what they were talking about. And I celebrated it anyway. It was a lot of fun. I loved the callback to a classic Ify point, close enough, good enough.
Good enough.
I love the new shiny questions. I love an IRL, like actual play shiny question. I think that is so fun. The new set, the whole, just BDG, all of it was like this fresh, like revitalization of something that I've loved for so long. It's very exciting to see what's gonna come.
I think it definitely felt fresh, and also within that really tight framing of what you expect from them, actually. Like, they tweaked all of the points that could use some freshening up without making it feel like a departure from what you love about the show. Jordon, I wonder, like, how you perceive the kind of shifts that they're making while also staying true to the brand.
Yeah, well, as someone who also spoke to Ify Nwadiwe for an hour in the last couple of weeks, who knows when that happened? Yeah, it was super fun because I talked to him about that change of like the shiny questions to the shiny activity. I don't remember what they're called, the shiny thing, which I thought was super fun to get people up and moving and have them running around. I thought that was a really fun addition that felt in line with the show and new, which was like the best possible way to do it. Of like, we're not going to change anything, but we're not going to not change anything. We're not going to radically change anything, but we are going to add some new stuff to it, which is fun. And I think, for a show that's been on for, this is its 9th season, right? Yeah, like, a new lifeblood is always a good thing for a show. And yeah, I thought fantastic. I did know the answer to one question, but I don't remember what it was. Was there a Lord of the Rings question? If there was, that was the one I knew.
That was the one that you would have gotten. I also clocked in a fat goose egg this week. I knew none of the answers, which was a little bit shocking to me because my general trivia that would work on Actually is very all over the place. I have some really hot episodes and some very not episodes, and this was a big not for me. Something that really stood out to me with this revival, this refresh of Actually, and I've seen this chatted about in the subreddit for Dropout, so again, shout out to the subredditers that are contributing to conversation there. I think I also have heard Ify use this language, but I can't find my source on it, so I'll just throw that umbrella up that I've heard this in the conversation. I've definitely seen it on Reddit, and I think Ify himself has talked about this. But the sway into Ify taking on more of a late night TV host version of this show versus what Mike Trapp did so exceptionally well, which was more of the what I would consider the game show, like Jeopardy style hosting of Actually, and keeping it very time bound and paced and oriented. Ify really leaned more into the fun and the lulls in conversation and adding in a little bit more of that like jovial host tone added a different layer and a different take than what I would expect from Mike hosting, which I think is a really fun way to introduce people to a new take on the show and not just feel like it's a comparison game between one or the other, because that's not really fair on Ify. It's not really fair on Mike to just toss in like a, what did you like better about each of them? Like, no, it's two completely different styles of hosting this show, and that's very, very cool and fun as someone returning to it. I really enjoyed that take.
Yeah. And I really liked the promo when Mike Trapp regenerated into Ify. I just think that was really funny and like perfectly in the game of the show. So
Yeah, Trapp correcting Saltzman about things as he is regenerating into Ify. Fantastic.
so good.
Yes, we cannot talk about the changes without talking about the energy that BDG brought in as well. I really enjoyed his chemistry with Ify and having him behind the laptop. Jordon, what did you think of seeing him in this new role?
It was fantastic. I think I may have mentioned in our first episode that, like, I know there is such a devoted corner of the internet to BDG, and I really enjoy him, but I am not in that corner. Not because, like I said, not because I don't like him, just like I wasn't following Polygon enough to like have fallen madly in love with him the way that people respond in my comments when he started popping up in things. But yeah, I thought he was fantastic. I guess I'm just gonna plug my Patreon the whole episode. I don't mean to do. Ify interview is like it. I ask a question and then Ify like goes deep nerd on me for 6 to 10 minutes of just like in an answer. And basically I was like, "How did you meet BDG?" And he was like, "Here we go." And so like they talked about how like they met on Dirty Laundry, and he liked the Gundam shoes that that BDG was wearing, and then like they ran into each other at a party, and like their partners all like decided that they love food as much, and they became like fast friends. And so when they brought Ify on to host, his immediate thing was like, oh, and Saltzman said he wanted to step back as well. Ify was like, I want BDG, there's no one else that I want for the show. So like having that knowledge also like made it feel even more fun that like Ify has a good friend that is right there with him.
100%. That chemistry is something that can't be manufactured, right? Like you really felt the deep roots that they brought in together to this. If you'd talk a little bit about this story on the subreddit AMA that he did last week. So if you want the short version of the story, it's on Reddit. And if you want the 6 to 8 minute version of the story, which is highly entertaining, you can go to Jordon's Patreon. Something else that came up in this AMA just on this note of like storytelling with Ify is how did he get pitched to do the show, and him saying it's the fastest email I've ever responded to in my life. Which is a fun segue to Game Changer last week, where everyone was roasted for how many unread emails I have at any given time. It feels only right that I ask the panel, how many unread emails are you looking at right now? Goose egg for Marissa? Goose egg for Jordon?
I have an obsessive need to clear my notifications at all
Same.
times. All time.
Yep.
I cannot have a little bubble. Absolutely not. It'll ruin my day. And I know, Liz Duff, you are the opposite. Drop the bomb.
Well, it's not that bad. I'm at 25 in my Gmail, but my I have an old Hotmail email address that I forgot the login to, and based on last week's Game Changer, I thought it's finally time to hack back into that bad boy and see how many unread emails there are. And I think there was 130,000. So
that's too many.
Terrifying.
I can balance it out because my wife and I were playing along, and like the top 3 apps, obviously my number one is TikTok, and I went in and for a week of TikTok I spent 24.5 hours on it, which is too much time. So there you go. Shame also over here from that episode.
I did also play along as I was watching, but in that week, my most used app was Messages. So I guess I was just really popular that week.
Okay, self-reflection and ego boost is not the reflection Jordon and I had.
No, what it actually meant is I worked too much and was texting people about work while at work. I didn't have time for TikTok.
That's fair. No, that's fair. I love when we can all take part in the game with Dropout, and I think, like, I wasn't on the Discord live chat during that episode, but I so wish I had been, because I'm sure everyone must have been, like, playing along as the questions were coming up. Speaking of this kind of new or revisited style for Game Changer, let's talk about that episode because I had so much fun in this more interactive style. It brought in so many elements that are like brain teasers for Liz to think about, going back into like nerdy production mode that I get into every week. Like, I enjoyed the new set. I enjoyed seeing new faces. I enjoyed seeing old faces with new faces and kind of getting more lore and backstory for people we know and love. And we had Sam's wife on the show, which was such a fun little twist as well. Elaine. We love Elaine. Jordon, of all of the things that this episode provided us as viewers, was there a specific new element or exciting reveal that stood out to you as like, oh, this is a fun twist?
Oh boy. I mean, the first thing that jumps to mind is how many people didn't know Sam and Elaine were married. That's always delightful when it's like when people discover Murph and Emily are married. It's like, yeah, there's a reason why there's such good banter here. I think how good each of the partners of the like Dropout cast members were and how I want to see them on more Dropout content. Like
100%.
Give me more partners, even without like Ify, Raph, Teo. Like I don't need them. We've got fantastic partners as well to jump in there.
I loved seeing a new podium setup. That was so cute, so fun. The little heart of the arch, so cute. And it really felt like a return to like the lie detector from like, was that the first season?
It's the first episode of the first season.
It's the first episode of the... Whoa. Wow. A return to form. And of course, not even just a return to form, but like a weird sort of turning form on its head. You take a newlyweds and then adjust, you know, exactly what Game Changer does and excels at in taking something familiar and making it just a little bit weirder. And through that weirdness, so much more entertaining.
And if I can plug my Sam interview for the 50th time, I'm
Please,
sorry,
no,
I'm
keep
not
talking
normally
about it.
like this. In the behind the scenes that we're getting tonight, I talked to Sam about it, and they're including whole games that were cut from the Newlywed game. And so the idea is, instead of a like cut for time episode at the end of the season, each off week when we get the behind the scenes, they're going to include like full things that were cut from the episode, so that you'll get more of that. And the behind the scenes will be longer and not just like 3 minutes of them talking about how we built the hearts. Although I also want to see Chloe Badner talking about how she built the hearts. But yeah, like, so we get like even more games tonight on our behind the scenes episode.
Awesome. I love
Give
that.
Little clap for that.
Everybody a little clap.
Everybody a little clap.
Everybody a little
Come
clap.
on, everybody, give me a little clap.
Perfect segue. Okay, this is also a conversation that this specific group has just been itching to have. Like, I think that I've been itching to have this conversation since Very Important People was announced and Zach Oyama turned all of his profile pictures on all of his socials to him in this incredible costume. We have to talk about Very Important People this week. Or I guess it was 2 weeks ago now, and then we got the last looks in last week's Dropout releases. Wow, a tongue twister for our time. Incredible. But let's talk about, we have to start with Vic, as always. Vic's incredible, groundbreaking work as host of this show. I mean, it's incredible that 6 episodes in, this is the first time we saw Vic break the way they did, but it's not at all surprising that it was Zach who caused it. Jordon, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, kudos to Vic for like the second protein powder is such like the second protein powder, like asking for it again, such a like strong commitment. And because I know we'll talk about like Vic as the straight man or the, you know, in comedy terms, the voice of reason is what Vic calls it. But it's so much more than that because they're in there doing the like, hey, I want more protein powder. But yeah, as Vic said to me in our accidental podcast, they were like, I was fighting for my life out there every moment of that episode. And truly, yes, the speed at which I think Tommy Shrigley answered military because it was no longer Zach Oyama. Zach Oyama was gone. He was in the sunken place. And Tommy Shrigley was in control. Because you saw the reaction from Vic and the reaction from Zach as he realized what, like, that moment. And, like, when I talked to Vic about it, you know, they had said there was probably, like, 20 minutes in between the last time they had talked about the military, because all the protein powder stuff had happened in between that. And so the speed at which, but the perfect callback, Zach Oyama, just, like, comedy sniper as always, coming in with just, like, the perfect moment. But yeah, another tiny highlight from the Accidental Vic podcast, Vic went in to get their phone from the green room, and Zach was in there, and so they had told Vic, like, hey, just go in, get your phone, leave. Like, don't give away, because Zach hadn't seen what he looked like yet. And Vic said when they walked in, they said, excuse me, because they didn't know who it was. And then Zach spoke, and they realized it was Zach, and they couldn't say anything. They picked up their phone, left, came back in, took a picture, and left again.
Incredible. Absolutely incredible. Marissa, I gotta throw it to you when we're thinking about, like, Zach across Dropout properties, right? And, like, we've seen Zach multiple times on the shows that he has been on, right? Like, you watch Zach on Dimension 20, whether it's Fantasy High or a different property, and you kind of know what he can bring to the table as a comedian in the Dungeons and Dragons or whatever format he's playing in. You watch Zach on, like, Make Some Noise doing Noise Boys, and you know the role he's gonna play in that table. And it was so fun to watch him take on a new show and a new challenge. Anything that stood out to you about Zach's performance and what he brought to this format?
Weirdly, it was like a format that I didn't think about him in before it, you know, happened. And then I was like, well, obviously, of course, like, this is the perfect person to have here. He commits 200%, obviously. And then later in the week, I found myself, as I often do, just watching a compilation of Noise Boys clips. Because I love them.
Comfort YouTube video of the moment.
Clip compilation. And it just, like, a short bit was, there was some Make Some Noise prompt where it was like, Brennan was the lawyer and then Zach was the defendant, and he goes, yeah, I killed him, and then just killed the beat. And it was like, oh, like, I don't know why that was the thing that made me be like, yeah, that's something really special. That just, like, it's that 200% commitment where it's like, he takes the, like, you know, game as defined and then builds on it to, like, another, like, being a mental health advocate, choosing that for, like, his goal as this character is, like, just a hat on a hat, but a hat on a hat that you would love to wear.
I also love, like, that Zach, known for that, like, yeah, I killed him, like, that level of, like, minimalist, like, pinpoint accuracy. Yeah. They went, well, we're gonna give him the biggest, wildest transformation of anyone on the show, and it's going to be the most in your face, because they all know that, having worked with Zach on stage, that he can also do those characters. We just don't see that as often from him. And boy, I mean, obviously he nailed it 100%, but yeah.
I keep laughing to myself because I'm just remembering him using the tiny hands to pick things up.
And then he dropped everything except the protein powder. Just
Which
so
is
fantastic.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable that was the one thing that did not just smash all over Vic.
Also, a quick shout out to Vic for, we can't throw anything at PAs anymore. Oh, Vic. Just incredible. Fantastic.
And that is the power that Vic brings that people need to really remember. It's the intentional choices of someone as seasoned and masterful in their craft can pull off, and that's Vic in a nutshell. And every episode we get those moments from Vic that really show me that they are someone that is so severely underrated in comedy in general. Like, I think about, like more mainstream comedy shows, like sitcom comedy shows. I would love to see Vic on a show like Superstore. I know Zach was on Superstore, so that's top of mind for me this week as well. But, like, in those kind of sniper roles, you come in as a cameo, you do something incredibly well, and then you leave. Like, Vic needs to be that person for this next wave of sitcom television that's going to come out. Like, hire Vic. Hire Vic. Let's get Vic hired, everybody. I want to see them everywhere. I could talk about dreamcasting Vic all day. Jordon, is there a role that you want to dreamcast Vic in right now?
Well, I will say, Vic's dream role is doing this forever. And so, like, shout out to everyone who's supporting Dropout by watching this, and obviously also watching Dropout. Because truly, if you don't subscribe to Dropout, what on earth are you doing here?
Truly.
But yeah, like, getting Vic to be able to do this for the rest of their life, wildly support. Yeah, I don't know. Vic was also so good in the Hallmark movie, Round and Round. It was absolutely delightful. Like, Vic's so good in everything. I have no dream casting other than they get to do whatever they want forever, and I get to continue to watch it.
And we'll be front row support. Before we leave this conversation on very important people, I want to talk about what is coming up for very important people, because Jordon, you raised the very valiant point that people don't realize just how much further we have to go to get to the end of this season. We have BDG on this week, kind of continuing that thread of actually coming into the spotlight. I am so excited to see this one. I think it's another sniper character, another sniper role that, like, the people that know, and the people that don't are about to learn real fast what a comedic legend we have on our hands. Anything you two are looking forward to specifically?
Surprises. I open dropout.tv for the surprises. I'm not here to guess about what I'm about to watch. I just want it to happen to me.
Well, then, close your ears for a second as I give a spoiler, that the finale episode is Brennan's character.
Oh.
Another scoop from my Sam interview, and it is the most we get of host Vic's character.
Perfect.
So, like, get excited for that. I'm obviously thrilled, because it is, I love the through line of Vic's, like, pretty much asshole of, like, who they host Vic, obviously, who they are as a person. I love that through line, and more of it I can't wait for. And Brennan, of course, Brennan is going to be the one to, like, turn the tables on the interviewer and bring out the most character work.
That is exciting.
100%. I do want to just throw a really bold opinion out there. Like, I'm just gonna own it, okay? And I talked about my bias at the top of this episode. I really do think that the Ify-Vic matchup is going to be one of my top 3 episodes of the season. It's currently in my top 2.
Yeah.
It's not number 2, okay? Like, I think that episode's really gonna stand the test of this season, but I'm willing to see what's in store and come back on my word in a few weeks.
We also got a lot of lore in that one, so...
In fact, more lore than anyone could dream of in terms of host Vic's house and living situation. Something I want to circle back on in season 2.
Oh, the security camera footage. Just
Yeah.
those, like, interstitial beats every time.
Hysterical.
Yeah.
So good. So good. Okay, let's talk about Fantasy High Junior Year, because we had in terms of mid-season finales, in terms of, being halfway through a show and having no idea what's coming next, Fantasy High Junior Year is that girl right now for Dropout. Like, talk about not knowing what the fuck is going on. Marissa, as someone that does not watch Fantasy High, you were as confused as the rest of the internet this week. Do you want to tell the people what you have questions about?
What the hell is the Vulture Dimension? I opened Twitter and suddenly everyone's talking about it, and I'm like, okay, based on these people's profiles, I think I understand that this is a Dimension 20 thing, but beyond that, help me.
The Vulture Dimension, I also had to take a beat as it was happening in the show, because it was like, talk about Brennan being able to pace the story perfectly and knowing his table so well. It was very much like, what the fuck is happening as you're watching it. So just a tiny claps all around, little claps all around to everyone that worked on that storyline, specifically around the Vulture Dimension for Dimension 20, because it was very reflective of the reaction you had, Marissa, as you were watching it in real time.
I think I can give you the breakdown, which is in the first season on a battle map, Rick Perry put a vulture on a thing. It was nothing except for, like, extra set dressing so that, like, there was something other than just, like, a lamppost. They just put, like, a bird on top of it. It was a vulture. And the lunatics that are the intrepid heroes latched onto that so hard that they were like, what's going on with that? Every turn they were like, but like, what is going on with the Vulture? And it became a thing that Brennan tricked them into really leaning into. And so now there have been 3 fights. In 2 of the fights this season, a Vulture has been on the set, and so when the players investigated this time, they didn't in the first fight. A full animatic of feathers wrapped around the dome. Brennan brought out what appears to be maybe a new map, and they have been transported to the Vulture Dimension. And I, Liz, like you, lost my mind with like joyful giddiness as I was watching it, of like, what a wild thing. From what I have heard, it was a Brennan, Carlos, Rick collaboration of like, I think they described it as a mania of like a preseason meeting.
In a moment of mania as
yes.
they were developing the season. That's exactly the words that were used, yes.
Yeah.
That's
I think
incredible.
It really plays into one of the overarching themes of this season of junior year, which is Brennan leaning into habits, good or bad, that the cast have displayed in previous seasons, which, to get back on my soapbox, this kind of shit only happens when you give a show 3 seasons to develop. It's not the kind of joke you can hit in a season 1. It is barely a kind of joke that you can hit in season 2. It's only in a season 3 or onwards that you can start having this much fun. So shout out to Dropout for giving their shows space to breathe like this, because we are not getting a lot of it. If you follow other streamers, you see how many shows get canceled after 1 season. This week there was a big one that got canceled after 1 season. You see a lot of shows that barely get a season 2 package in terms of like the length of the season or the budget for the season. So it's really fulfilling to watch a show that has space to get to jokes like the Vulture Dimension, because the payoff is so incredibly worth it for the viewers. The moments like that are why you commit to watching a show and keep coming back. In fact, I would say my investment in not just Dimension 20 as a series, but Dropout as a streamer increases the more that I get moments fed to me like that, like a payoff for investing in that many watch hours of a series. So yes, the Vulture Dimension is something that is a payoff of a long time coming. It is hysterical for people that are... it's hysterical for people that have watched the whole time. It's also very fun from a community perspective to have people inside the Dropout community who might not be watching Binge see how I'd be like, they're having a lot of fun over there. What is going on?
Yeah, that's me like knocking on the gate, being like, let me in, what's going on?
What's happening? If and when the Vulture set goes up on an auction, I will be, maybe I should start my savings now for it. And speaking of, we have just had another refresh into the auction. Hello. So let's talk about what's currently going on. We got Mr. Gibbons with 1 bid at $50, fresh off. We have Rumble Road, Cubby Intersection, big part of an infamous scene. 3 bids. 5 bids. Cubby's going straight up. Tony Tenari is on the board. Lunch Lady Doreen, listen, top of this episode, she was fresh on the market, and now after 20 bids, it's sitting at $653 USD. Reminder that if you're like me and not in the US, you gotta find an American friend to send your bids to should you win. And Jordon has the low fee of $10,000, I think you said last week, if you want Jordon to be your US-based friend.
That's right.
Marissa, I'm sure you would also take $10,000 to ship a mini to someone should they decide to place a bid.
You know what? I can accept that burden.
All right, so there you go. 2 people willing for the low price. If you're bidding on a mini, then maybe that's not far off for you. All that to say, auction.dropout.tv, you can see all of this unfold. I am having such a blast watching what is happening, and it's on for the next few weeks, so if you're watching this in the future, then feel free to still check it out. There might be some still up. And with that said, I do feel like it's time to speculate wildly about what's going on. Maybe we'll play a mini game this week. What do we think the highest selling mini is going to be on the Dropout auction? Jordon, would you like to speculate wildly?
So here's the thing. I have speculated wildly about every mini auction, and I have never been close to being right. During Never After, I was like, obviously it's the Orange Fairy. Lou Wilson put the hat in his mouth. Like, that's going to go for $1 million. And then it went for roughly the same price as every other fairy. Because as a poor, I don't know what riches will spend their money on. But
Valid.
like, I think Calvaxis, a giant dragon mini wearing a suit and tie, feels like a high bidder. And then maybe the corn cutie tableau. That was my those are my two that I will probably be wrong about.
I am surprised at some of what we're seeing so far in the auction. Like, corn cuties are holding their own at like $600 to $700 a piece. The main characters, Kristen Appleby's, Fabian on the Hangman, and Adine are all over $1,000 already. So I do feel like there's like the side characters are gonna make some moves. Johnny Spells is at $2,000 when we're recording this, so I wouldn't be surprised if like a Johnny Spells or like another NPC that is coming up in the coming weeks is gonna go for like an extraordinary amount for literally no reason other than they were someone's favorite NPC.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
shout
funny.
out to everyone who can't afford them. But hey, plug for signing up for the Dropout newsletters, because you could win a table and other minis that they're giving away as long as you are subscribed to their newsletter.
Looking ahead in terms of the shows and not just the auction, I would like to speculate wildly around Ify. And actually, that's my big speculation of the week. I don't know what order they are releasing the episodes in terms of like, they always mix up the order they record them in and then the storyline of the season. I think that we probably started on a safer foot in terms of the antics that Ify is bringing to the screen. And they kind of are warming us into the new kind of late night style host commentary embedded within the questions and answers. So my big bet for this season of Actually is that Ify is going to come in with some wild rants and just time suckers that will extend the length of the episode by a few minutes, because he's in charge. And why wouldn't he?
Yeah. There is at least one game that they will play that Ify described as, when you see it, you'll know I wrote it, because it's a very horny game, and that's Ify's brand. So
It's the whole brand. It's the whole thing. Jordon, would you like to speculate wildly about Actually or anything happening with Dropout right now?
I mean, I don't have to speculate wildly. Next week, next Monday, we will be getting Sam Says 3 with Lou, Jacob, and Vic in what seems to be the most unhinged episode ever produced of Game Changer, and Paul Rubolino says his favorite episode that they've ever made. So I'm excited to see it, and it's currently clocking in at 44 minutes, I believe, which is a fantastic news for us.
Fantastic, terrifying. I am so excited. But in all seriousness, this is the episode that has been the PR play of the season of Game Changer. It's the one that Sam's revisited time and time again in the interviews he's been doing, and now the interviews he's been doing within our own community here with Jordon. So I'm really excited to see what they are producing in terms of this incredibly high bar they're setting. I'm sure it will still surprise us and like completely throw away any preconceived notions we had coming into it. Marissa, what are you looking to wildly speculate about this week?
I forgot that it was Sam Says next week. That's so exciting. Now I'm just thinking too much about Sam Says, because I think it's one of the most effective Game Changer game samers that they have played. I think about Sam Says Go so often. So I can't imagine what's gonna top Sam Says Go. There's a party bus at some point, right? So
yes. From what I understand, and I did not ask Sam specifically about this is from other interviews, they get to go on a party bus, and the contestants don't realize the game is still going.
That's
devious. So the points are adjusted when they return to the studio, having done things without getting the command Sam says.
It's brilliant. I love it.
Yeah.
And that panel is like the most commit to the bit group. Like,
yeah,
that's going to be very exciting. That's great.
I will say I did just revisit recently the behind the scenes of Sam Says Go that they released on the season 5.
Yeah, the like extended
time. What a tearjerker. It could be its own short film, to be honest. Like, it's just so wholesome.
It is very cute.
Which I think
So,
is what
again,
worked so well about the Newlywed Game. It felt very much like, I mean, it was, silly and there were some wild moments, but like very wholesome, generally speaking, which is one of the things that I love about Dropout and Game Changer, of like the wholesome special moments, the don't cry moments, if you will, that make the show different than just, mentally messing with someone for no reason.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's true. And it goes back to, like, if you've been listening week after week, one, thank you, but two, you'll hear me say this time and time again, the talent incubator side of what Dropout's doing. You only get moments and stories, and I would even argue, like, the lead up to what we're getting with the Sam Says, the newest episode of Sam Says, when you have that talent, safety, and ability for them to connect with one another and to the properties that they're in. Like, when you're constantly bringing in new cast, you lose all of that lore and connection the audience has made. But we're excited not just for a new episode of Game Changer, but now we're like multiple layers deep. We're excited for Game Changer, we're excited for Sam Says, we're excited for this specific cast, we're excited for this specific cast amongst all the other things I've said. Like, there's so many layers to what we can connect to with a show like this, which is why it's Emmy worthy.
Yes.
You know what? We could talk in circles around this all day long, but everyone watching this probably agrees. So once again, we'll be in the comments with you. So coming up this week, we have the behind the scenes of Game Changer, Fantasy High Junior Year, and a brand new Very Important People. Will break it down next Monday. We'll see you guys next week.
Yep.
Thanks for dropping in. Bye, everyone.